Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Woody Allen Retrospective Podcast. I'm your host, Donald the Wonder, and I'm joined once again by a guest we had on a year and a half ago. A really cool friend of mine, the creator of Manic Expressions, James Walsh. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm glad to have you on to talk about a very special book.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I've been looking forward to this.
Me and James have had this ongoing conversation for years about Woody Allen. Everything going on with Woody Allen, we just go back and forth, all the news, all the gossip, and I couldn't think of a person I would love to have more to talk about Woody Allen's autobiography, biography. What's the other word they call for people who write biographies? There's a memoir.
Yeah. Apropos
of nothing. Woody Allen released it in 2020. There was controversy even with the release of the book. And yeah, we have thoughts on the book. But you know what, guys? I just want to say, if this is your first time listening to this podcast, you found a video or audio on YouTube or your favorite podcast medium, we have been talking about every single Woody Allen film since he's been a director. All the way back from the 60s, 50s, all the way up until now. Every single movie. We've got a YouTube playlist. Go back and check out those reviews. People know what to expect when they listen to this podcast. Not no toffee nose film snobs. Just normal guys talking about Woody Allen. A different kind of Woody Allen fan, which I found that most people appreciate. And this isn't Woody Allen's first book. He's written a lot of short stories. He has a lot of them on Audible and for purchase. But he finally wrote his own memoir. And the last time me and you spoke, James, we was talking about, well, to be precise, if you guys missed the last discussion me and James had, we was talking about Woody Allen's final chapter. On that last recording, Woody Allen had wrapped filming A Rainy Day in New York, but Amazon screwed him. They wouldn't release the film because of the Dylan Farrow ongoing unjust controversy. So Woody Allen was kind of in limbo. We didn't really know where Woody was going. And, James, I just want to ask you, between then and now, I just want your feel for Woody Allen's career. How do you feel between the last time we spoke and now? How do you feel Woody Allen sits with his career right now, in general? It's
interesting because I don't think that the controversy, it's not that it's gone away, but I think that, there was and I'm sure we'll get into this, they announced that his autobiography is coming out. There's an immediate backlash, and the publisher immediately says, okay, we're not going to release it. That is the best thing that has happened to his career in years. Because as soon as that happened, everybody came out, well, not everybody, but a lot of people came out and said, look, we don't necessarily like him, but you can't tell us what to read.
I think Stephen King was one of the first ones that came out to say that, actually.
And I found that a lot of the actors that have worked with him suddenly started speaking up a little bit more. The ones that haven't turned their back on him. Suddenly there was a little bit more of a like, hey, let's hear his side of things.
Yeah.
And I was expecting the book in early April, and I got it in mid-April. So it wasn't even like it was, another publisher picked it up immediately, and the controversy probably got more people to read it than would have.
Yeah, just to dig in the details a bit of what you mentioned, on March 6, 2020, is it Hachette? Hachette Publishing said that they would no longer be publishing the book. Now, Hachette was ironically the publisher of Ronan Farrow's book, was it To Catch and Kill? So he went on a Twitter tirade saying, why are you publishing my father's book? He's, controversy, blah, blah, blah. There was a walkout of the staff at the publishers again, and they caved. So a few months later, or even a month later, Arcade Publishing, another independent New York-based publisher, picked up the book and they distributed it. On top of that, Woody went and did an audiobook version of the book on Audible, where he's had books on Audible before. So I was glad to see that Audible didn't, throw their hat in and say, no, we're not going to have Woody Allen on as well. And I think the audiobook is just the best way to hear his words. Not just, and that's just, I'm biased. I'm biased for audiobooks anyway, because I'm partially sighted. It's easier for me to listen, but I really liked hearing these words come from Woody Allen's mouth because he could deliver comedy more, la da 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 da. But James, let's get into the book. First of all, again, what did you think of Apropos of Nothing? What did you think of the whole book?
Well, like I said, I got the book, but you were, I don't have Audible, but you sent me a link so that I could download it and listen to it. And it was 12 hours. And I thought, oh, how am I ever going to get through this? I got through it in like 4 or 5 days. It's funny. It's insightful. And what I love about Woody and hearing Woody talk about it, you can tell how much he doesn't care. He's not, I really believe him when he says, if I never made another movie again, it's okay. If I don't care about my legacy, I don't care about what people think of me. I got to do all these amazing things in my life. They can't take that from me. I have a family that I love. They can't take that from me. And it was really great to hear his side of things. And as much as he doesn't maybe necessarily care, or maybe not let on how much he cares, some of the stuff that was revealed in that book about the Pharaohs was so outrageous.
Yeah.
That, my girlfriend, who doesn't give a shit about Woody Allen, could care less, has no interest in him. I couldn't help but go to her and be like, and then they did this, and then this happened, and then they were doing this, and like, I just couldn't. I had to like vent it because it was so unbelievable how hypocritical and flat out crazy these people sound.
The Farrells, Mia Farrow and their clan specifically. I was actually surprised because Woody Allen's been very tight-lipped about his relationship with Mia Farrow, and especially the controversy with the court case and the accusation and the criminal investigation. Very tight-lipped. He had that 2020 interview. He said bits here and there, but we all knew that there was a lot more he probably knew. That I have to say, I was actually surprised because I actually thought he was going to be very reserved in his retelling, or he might just decide I'm bigger than this. But I will say I think it's fair to say half of this book is dedicated to him explaining his and Mia Farrow's relationship as a couple, and also how it degraded, and how, the Sun Ying betrayal and the accusation all came, and the right and wrong of it. And I think he did it in a very, just kind of the facts way. I was shocked at what I heard. I was shocked at some of the things he mentioned, and he tried to corroborate as much as he could with not just his opinion, but by people who were in the house and the court case. I learned so much about corrupt judges, fake friends, false evidence, and even more ludicrous stuff that is pretty much factual because he could back it up. And there's a YouTube video that even goes into more detail, which we'll talk about later as well. But I will say, I didn't think I would get that much information on the Mia Farrow situation. I think he really just wanted to have his say once and for all after 30 years. And if that's what you came to get in this book, you definitely are going to get that. And I was actually surprised how many hours it took for him to do it. But it didn't feel forced, and it didn't really feel like he was it really didn't feel like he was even trying to be sympathetic to himself or play himself out to be a victim. He just stated the facts and even his own ignorance with a person who was quite unhinged and quite damaged in their own right, And yeah, I was blown away by that part. I want to talk about the other things about Woody Allen, because this movie isn't just Mia Farrow, the controversy. No, it's about him as well. But I was surprised how much of that I got out of it, just so he could put a pin in it, it was very satisfying in that degree, especially if you're a Woody Allen defender, believer, you know, if you put yourself in that camp of things, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with exactly how deep he goes into that.
And he doesn't come off like he's trying to sensationalize anything. He's just stating things. He doesn't even, you know, there's a bit in there about Mia Farrow talking about breastfeeding her biological kids until they're like 9 or 10, and how she would sleep nude with Ronan when he was still like a little boy. And Woody kind of just states it. He doesn't go, isn't that weird? Isn't that bizarre? How can anybody think this about me when she's doing it? He's just sort of like, this happened, and just sort of kind of lets us think what we're going to think.
Yeah. I read a lot of reviews. I want to talk about, I'm going to jump back and forth here for a reason. So before the book came out, I was reading these headlines from some of these journalists, some of the trades about their opinions, Hollywood Reporter, Telegraph, all these, and they were really taken aback by Woody's candor and his bluntness. Now, if you don't know Woody Allen, if you haven't watched his interviews, I think you will find his tone and he's kind of callous in the way of his delivery. He just says it how it is, even some of the most crazy and controversial things in his life. It's so blunt and direct. It kind of feels like he's like I've heard some people say he's a psychopath because he's got no feeling. He just states the facts, and it just seems like he doesn't care about anything, even his own movies, which is hilarious, by the way. But I've watched Woody Allen interviews. I've watched that documentary, the 2012 American Masters one that Mr. Whitey made. And if you see that documentary, you know Woody Allen is a very strange man in that he's kind of a cold, detached, blunt kind of person. If you know that about him, I don't think the book will come off as psychopathic as some of these trades make it out to be.
You know, the whole bit about like even him being dismissive of his own movies, I think he just considers that good manners instead of sitting there going, you know, what a genius I am and all. I think he just is, yeah, I'm not going to sit here because he obviously cares. He wouldn't be doing it if he didn't care.
Yeah.
And you could see it, although sometimes you can see it in certain movies, and I'm sure we'll talk about that maybe he doesn't care that much. He's not giving it his all. And then suddenly you get Sweet and Lowdown, or you get Zelig, and those are not movies made by a guy who doesn't care.
Yeah. Same with the Purple Rose of Cairo. Have I got their name right? yeah, I mean, some of his movies are just so passionate and so well. My favorite Woody Allen movie, I've said multiple times, is Another Woman, a movie people think is on a lower tier of his movies, but some movies just ring to you. Some of them have rang out to the masses, some of them just ring to you individually. But funny enough, the biggest criticism for this book, which I completely understand, is that Woody Allen is a volume filmmaker. He's made pretty much a movie every year for 50 years. So someone, as a cinephile or a film student, might come into this book thinking he's worked with so many actors, he's done so many movies. I want to read a book describing every single movie. You know, I want Woody Allen, the movie, the book. And I thought I was going to get this. And when you read this book, he literally throws away one line, 1 or 2 or 3 lines for each of the 50 movies. And a lot of people found it to be a betrayal. And I thought that was hilarious. I really did. Now, I understand people are upset about that. And I actually believe if Woody Allen made a separate book about just his movies and producing his movies, it would probably do more. It'll probably get more awareness than this book, than his own memoir, just of the simple fact that he interacted with all these stars, he was on so many locations. It would be such a meaty, factoidy cinema book, and that's what people wanted. Again, if you don't know, Woody Allen doesn't care about that stuff, the minutia. From watching his interviews, it is going to be a bit of a shock for you.
Well, and I don't even know how much he'd have, because you never hear about drama from his productions. You never hear, well, this star was coked out of his mind, and these two people were sleeping together. That stuff doesn't happen on his, like, the most it sounds like there was was drama on the set was when he made September, and he was just constantly recasting it and shuffling it around and remade it completely at one point. That sounds like the most that his set ever got crazy. Otherwise, and I'm sure people would love to, I know there's a lot of footage of Annie Hall that's not out there, and that he intended it to be a completely different movie. That's about all I can think of. There's not a lot that has happened where it's been controversial as far as the movies go.
And I don't think people wanted the controversy. I think they just wanted just the production. I think they wanted him to be more in love with... I think people find it hard to believe that someone who'd made 50 films doesn't have more than 3 lines to say about the movie. But again, it's just... This is the weird person Woody Allen is. Guys, a lot of people... I read so many Amazon reviews, people saying that, wow, I was really hoping for Woody Allen to talk about this movie, like Crimes and Misdemeanors more, and he just said, oh, I like working with Adam Alder, the end.
Mm-hmm.
And people get really upset, and I'm like, you it's just who he is. This is they say some of the most talented people, some of the smart people are just strange. The strangest thing about Woody Allen is his kind of dismissal and callousness of the film industry. That's why he doesn't want people in his movies. He always says that I just make a movie and move on. I don't think about it. I don't celebrate it. You give me an award, that's fine. I appreciate it, but I'm not coming to the awards. He's been this way for 50 years. It's very consistent. But I understand that 2 new people just reading it, like some people say, I never knew Woody Allen. I've read this in so many reviews. I never even knew Woody Allen. I read his book, and I just think this guy doesn't care about anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that he's unfeeling. It's just the kind of person he is, and it's part of what makes him a good comedian. He's deadpan. He's a straight man, and he's very self-effacing. He insults himself so many times. James, do you agree with me, James? What do you think? Is this just... why weren't you bothered about that? You didn't get all this stuff about the movies. I
didn't care. It was nice. He did acknowledge all the movies. It wasn't like you're reading it and going, well, wait, what about this movie? What about that movie? It sounds like the movies he had the most to say about, like, What's New Pussycat, was just sort of like, this is a bad movie. I made this movie and it was miserable, and he had
no control of
But he's an older guy, and he's very blue collar. He even talks a lot about, people think I'm an intellectual. People think because I wear glasses that I'm this or I'm that. And he says, that's not who I am. And I think it shows, you get like somebody who worked in a factory that's his age, and they look back on things. They don't talk about working in a factory like it was, oh, I did this and I did that, and I rose through the ranks, or I did that. They just sort of, this was my job. This is what I got up and I went and I did every day. And that's how he treats movies. It's just sort of a blue collar way of looking at it. It's his job. And he has passion for it, but I think that's why you get movies like, whether it's, what's the one with Jason Biggs?
Oh, Anything Else.
Yeah, that, or Rainy Day in New York even.
Yeah.
I think that's just, he woke up, he didn't really have an idea or a passion for it, but it's his job, so he did it.
He went into his drawer of ideas, took out an idea he had, made a film. And I understand people criticize, and I got a lot of positive to say about the book. I don't want to focus on the negative, but I like to address both sides. I wasn't even surprised. I couldn't even hate people for being upset about the book for the film stuff. But let me move to the stuff that I really did enjoy, because one thing I want to talk to you about, James, about Woody Allen's life, is Woody Allen to me has 2 lives, which I find very interesting. Before he was the film director, he had a whole comedy career. And that part of the book, which is the first part of the book, is basically him talking about him being a young man, getting into comedy, becoming a comedy writer. And he goes into that in so much detail. And this is the part of Woody Allen's life I don't think anyone really knows about at all. And I think that part of his world is very interesting because I don't know, the American stand-up comedy scene, the people he came up with, the people he praised, all that stuff. It's like, that's a whole other life. That's like a whole, I think he was like 40 when he started being a film director. He had 30 years of being a comedy writer, a stand-up comedian. And I think he goes into so much detail into that and fleshes it out so well. For the first half of the book, you're wondering, where are the films at? Where is this guy? But his first 2 marriages as well, in detail. I look at Woody Allen and I'm like, he is quite privileged in the fact he had two big successful careers: a comedy career, stand-up comedian, well established, well celebrated, and a film career, the bigger one, which everyone knows him for most notably. But I like the fact that he went into that in detail, and I don't think that's something anyone really knew about Woody Allen unless you watched that 2012 documentary, which he touched upon briefly. But that was really good. I thought he did a really good job talking about that.
I've had other autobiographies that I've read, or just straight up biographies, where you got to get through the childhood, and you got to get through all this, and you're reading it and you're like, okay, get to the album that I like, get to the movie that I like. I was, from beginning to end, thoroughly entertained by this. It didn't matter when he was talking about being a kid, when he was talking about growing up, when he was talking about just starting out. I was entertained by it. I wasn't going, come on, get to Manhattan. I would put it on, and I would walk. Take a walk or something, and I'd be listening to it. And he's talking about, I can't remember the name of the jazz musician that when he seeks out when he's a kid because he wants to learn how to play the clarinet. And, he's talking about he has no talent, and, but the guy came, and I think he paid him like $2 a session or something like that.
Yeah.
And he says, well, that's history. But then again, so is the Holocaust. And I had to stop in the middle of the street I was walking on and just laugh. Like you said, he doesn't really go into that much. Even Annie Hall, he doesn't go into that movie, that it's maybe a page. And, he talks about not going to the Oscars and how he got criticized and all that stuff. But as far as the production about it, he was like, yeah, I got up. Diane Keaton's a good actress. I liked working with her. She was great. The end. And, it wasn't that I felt like he didn't care. He even talks about how he doesn't rewatch his movies.
Yeah.
He watches them while he's doing the editing. He goes to the premiere, and that's the last time he ever sees that movie. And I think that there's a lot of like old school values that he has that people today don't understand. It's, like one of the things that the book got criticized about that I saw was he would refer a lot to, he'd be talking about women, and he'd be talking about immediately how beautiful they are. Oh, she was so beautiful, she was so sexy, whatever. And people are like, well, why is that the first thing he's talking about? Why are you even bringing it up? Oh, it's weird, it's creepy. Because for an older guy, that would have been a compliment at one point. And, he kind of is refusing to, I don't even know it's that he's refusing to bow to political correctness or bow to that, or if he's just not aware because he doesn't care. And, right down the line, he talks about Scarlett Johansson. I can't remember what he said about Scarlett Johansson, but he said something that, she always, it looks like she's looking at you, and at any second she'll just say, do you want to go?
Yeah.
And
he writ that line with finesse. I know what you're talking about,
right.
That line. He wrote in a very non-sleazy way, and that's not the best way to say it, but it was actually quite sophisticated the way he wrote that, and it was a great compliment, actually.
And he's right. I mean, that's one of the, they didn't pick her to play Black Widow because she's a shrinking violet. She has that look of that sort of old, like I think about like an old school actress, like a Rita Hayworth or something back in the day when, they couldn't, their, you know, sexuality was very limited and you had to convey things with a look. And he's right. Scarlett Johansson can do that. But people look at that, oh, she's so young, you're creepy. Why, you know, she's saying that. And it reminded me of when Carrie Fisher died. Steve Martin put out a tweet and he said, Carrie Fisher was a beautiful, brilliant woman and we'll miss her. And everybody came out against Steve Martin like, well, why was beautiful the first thing you said?
Yeah.
And he had to issue an apology. And it was sort of like, why? He's trying to compliment. And I get it, like, where women are like, look, we don't really need you to say that stuff about us when you don't know us. I get it. But Woody doesn't get it because Woody is 83 years old. And
he's a product of his time, in a sense. Not an excuse. It's just, you know.
But it's like, you know, I felt bad a couple of years ago, or maybe just a year or so ago, when like all these women came out against Joe Biden, then they were like, oh, he put his hand on my shoulder, you know, or, oh, you know, he kissed my forehead or whatever. And it's like, he's at this point could be somebody's great grandfather. This is how old men show affection. It's not necessarily creepy. It's somebody like giving you a hug.
Morgan Freeman was accused of something similar, actually, not too long ago as well.
And I mean, it kind of ruined Dustin Hoffman's career because, you know, there was talk, well, you know, he grabbed my butt or something on the set of Kramer versus Kramer. That was 40 years ago. And, you know, was it right? No. Was it 40 years ago and people had different ways of thinking? Yes. And I think Woody is just one of those people who, Woody's not on Twitter. Woody's not on Facebook. Woody's not paying attention to the sort of evolution of the world around him because he has no interest in it. He just wants to go play his jazz and watch basketball and get up and go to work. That's what he wants to do. And there's a lot of older people like that where they're not aware of all these new cultural norms because they're old. They're not paying attention to these things.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of the reviews, and you know this, I don't like looking at the reviews because they just make me mad. But it was, oh, he's creepy. He's a creep. And I think that those are people who are just looking, they don't like him. They don't like him going into it, and they're looking for whatever they can use to try and prove their point.
Well, here's the thing, because I've read a lot of memoirs, a lot of biographies, and sometimes you get these memoirs where you feel like the author's trying to put the best foot forward for the audience to be like, if you've never heard of me before or just peripherally know of me, I'm going to paint this picture of me in a way where, you know, you might like me if you don't know me at all. If you don't know Woody and you read this book, he doesn't really care.
Mm-hmm.
And because that's his personality, I understand. Look, let me give you an example. I read a lot of the journalists that wrote reviews for the book. I read a lot of them were assigned to read the book. Mm-hmm. And they've never I read there was at least 4 of these magazines, that said that their editor-in-chief told them to read the book and review it, not knowing Woody Allen at all. And a lot of them were just shocked that this is a man who's dismissive of his caste, doesn't care about women, came from a time where he dated anyone he could, any age he could, doesn't care about movies, and, you know, when he talks about this case, he's just so uncaring and just blunt and self-effacing and stuff. He's just someone I feel very callous about. They feel like they're dehumanizing him to a point because they think he just is a psychopath. They really do. So many people that don't know Woody Allen just thought, this guy's too blunt. He doesn't care about anything in his life. He's basically a nihilist as well. And he keeps on making these inappropriate jokes. But if you don't know Woody Allen and you read this book, I'm not surprised. Saying that, forget, if we put aside the magazines and we go to Goodreads and it's like Rotten Tomatoes. You got the critic score and the audience score. If you go to Goodreads and you look what the actual audience said, 90% of the reviews are 4-star plus.
Because they're Woody Allen fans. You wouldn't read it otherwise.
It's not just that. The people who weren't assigned to read the book find him to be a fascinating character and find the book to be, more than anything else, funny. Because this book is funny just because he's so detached about his own life and in a way so uncaring about everything. But at the same time, brutally honest to a T, which is really refreshing. What I want to say about the movies is that we, again, as part of this retrospective, we've reviewed every single movie. I actually thought Robert Weide might have helped Woody Allen remember all these films because obviously he didn't care enough to talk about them in any detail. I said, no, Woody Allen is not going to remember mentioning what's that? The movie he did in 2000s about the magician and the dead hand. I forgot with
Scoop.
No, Picking Up the Pieces. Yeah, that movie he said in the book, it's one of the biggest wastes of celluloid ever made. I mean, the movies he's proud of, Crimes and Misdemeanors, Match Point, The Purple Rose of Cairo. His favorite movie of all of his movies, which me and Simon historically don't like, Stardust Memories. He did go into a little bit more detail, but honestly, watching all the Woody Allen movies, knowing who he is, I've said it multiple times, I got what I wanted from this book. I really did, because he went into detail in most of his life. He spoke about his movies. To be honest with you, if he turned around and started to go into detail about the movies, I would say that he's being a bit fake, because he said historically the movies, once they're done and I move on, and he kept that same momentum in this book. So, but yeah, the Mia Farrow and well, you know what, let me throw it back to you, James, because I want to talk some more about the Mia Farrow stuff. But
well, I just want to say too, like, one thing that I thought was really hypocritical, like he doesn't talk enough about the movies, and yet what we constantly hear anymore is these actors won't shut up about themselves. And, I worked with so-and-so and they were great. And they were very complimentary to me. And they were, I felt we were making a very important movie and everything. And everybody's like, shut up. You're so fake. We don't care. And then Woody doesn't do it. And it's like, well, where's all the talk about the movies?
It's true. So let's talk about things in the book that surprised us. One of the things that I like about Woody Allen that he said, that I thought was one of the most heartfelt and truest things he ever said. He said the biggest accomplishment in his life was getting Soon Ying out of her situation. That was one of the biggest. It's done more than all of his movies. It's probably the thing he's most proud of his entire life. And you know what? I think that's really cool. He met all these celebrities, he's made all this money, and the thing he's most proud of in his life is rescuing his wife from a horrible situation, from a life of poverty and ignorance. And yeah, you can say that, that's the old white man rescuing the girl. He married his girlfriend's daughter, and he's just saying that. I believe him, because he didn't have to say that. And for him to say that everything means nothing to him except for his wife, and she's always been the most precious thing in his life. Say what you want about Woody Allen, and we've said how much we believe him and all that other stuff. I found that to be one of probably the most powerful things he said in the book, that Soon Ying and rescuing her and giving her a better life is probably the best thing he's done his whole life, which I found a bit surprising, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing too. I mean, when it got to the Soon Yi part, look, I still think he was a creep over how that went down. I think that he, the fact that he was not really with Mia Farrow anymore, that they really weren't together.
Very strange relationship. Very, I mean, that doesn't make it okay, because forget about the Mia Farrow connection completely. This was a way, way, way younger woman, barely an adult. I
I have a daughter who is that age, so I would say a child. Not legally a child, but
Sure.
it's still really, really young. So any criticism of him in 1992, fine. In 2020, when they've been married for 25 years, been together for almost 30, at that point you just say, okay, they were meant for each other. This wasn't just a fling.
Yeah.
He didn't just take advantage of this young woman and then toss her aside. This was he fell in love and she fell in love and they're still together and
they're married and they raised 2 kids.
Yeah, and at that point you have to just say Soon-Yi was an adult. She made a decision. She fell in love with who she fell in love with. And why in the hell should she have shown any loyalty to Mia Farrow? It wouldn't surprise me if there was a little bit on her part of fuck you, mom. Doing this to maybe even hurt Mia. But the way he describes it, the fact that somebody was showing interest in her, somebody was paying attention to her, somebody was treating her nice,
which is what Mia Farrow wanted. Ironically, we even said Mia pushed them together to spend more time together. I know she didn't see this coming, but I mean,
because and I feel like this has to be said just about every single time Woody Allen is brought up. Well, he married his daughter. No, he didn't. She's not his daughter. She's not his adopted daughter. He wasn't a father figure to her. He barely paid any attention to her. She was his girlfriend's adopted kid and one of many. And, he didn't go over and spend time with Soon-Yi. He went over and spent time with his kids.
It's going to be hard for anyone and to wrap their head around that relationship. That relationship is fucking weird, guys. And I'm only cutting you, James, because even if we try to rationalize and explain it to people, it was a weird relationship that ended in the strangest, controversialist, which is not a word, controversialist way of all time. It was, and when you hear Mia Farrow's mind and where she came from, it's not really, it's just, it was doomed to be a catastrophe. It really was. And I don't want to delve too much into that because one of the things Woody Allen says in the book is, which I think is kind of strange. Woody Allen says, if you're reading this book just to find out about the controversy, I hope you didn't. I really hope you didn't. But the thing is, if you did buy the book to hear about the controversy, you are going to get your money's worth because he goes into it in depth for half the book.
I would say that prior to reading the book, I was 99% sure that he was telling the truth. And there was that 1% of me where it was like, well, maybe, I don't know. And after reading the book, I thought, there's no way. There's no way at all that this happened. And I really, that's the thing. Nobody's going to ever challenge Dylan. Nobody's going to challenge Mia. Nobody's going to challenge Ronan. Nobody's going to sit there and say, in the book it says, this, and why are there no other accusers? And
I think we should shout out Robert Weide because I believe he did challenge them. I believe he challenged Ronan directly when he was younger, though. Not now, not in this Me Too era time, though.
No, now, no, and Dylan especially. Nobody's going to challenge her.
Yeah,
nobody's going. When they did that CBS interview, it was, the I don't remember the name of the lady who did the interview, but she was basically like, "I'm so sorry this happened to you."
What, Gayle King? Was that Gayle King?
Was it Gayle King? Yeah. And it was sort of like, "Hey, how about you also interview Woody? How about you all?" Well, no, this is her moment. Well, then you're not really a reporter. You're not really doing an interview. That's one of the things people who say Woody is so cold, Woody is so detached. The way that maybe the media should be, the way that maybe when you watch the news, that you should see somebody who's Ronan Farrow. We could do an entire podcast on what I think of Ronan Farrow.
I really like the point you just made where Woody's the one who's impassionate, and the media's the one that are passionate, when it should be the other way around. Woody, being the accused, should be more passionate about his case when he's cold, and the media are the ones that are emboldened and biased in the Me Too era, which they shouldn't be, which they should be looking more at the facts. I saw The View, you know, the women, that women show, Whoopi Goldberg, all them, and they actually had the discussion as well. And I was surprised how they were much more level-headed about it than I thought. Whoopi Goldberg was saying that Woody was found innocent after 2 investigations. They were stating the facts, but then there was still someone on the other side saying that, oh, it doesn't matter, Woody could have groomed it, this, that, and the other, but they didn't know the facts. And what I will say is, I feel like with Woody putting out this book, he has put his side out factually, and more people have become emboldened to listen. And I think that has been one of the best things for Woody Allen's career, and not only for his career, but for his own, sense of justice that he deserves. Because I don't think it's a coincidence, and this is a shout out to Rick Woley, I think, on YouTube. I think I got the name wrong, but in the podcast link below, I will link a YouTube video of a man who has gone through the case, gone through every factoid of the Woody Allen controversy, Mia Farrow relationship, Dylan Farrow, Ronan Farrow, past, present, and future, and has done an in-depth analysis on the case. I will say this, what you just said before, James, that you were 99% sure. I was 90% sure before I read the book. When I read the book, I was 99.9% sure. When I watched that essay that Rick Woley made on YouTube, which is, to me, if that was on Netflix, I think Woody Allen would be I think the public would see him in a whole new light, because it is such a high quality. It's done in such high quality and so thoroughly that no one can watch that with a logical mind and come to the conclusion Woody Allen is not innocent. The YouTube video is called, by the way, Woody Allen is Innocent, by Rick Woley. I'll put the link in the description. It came out after the book, which I think is fantastic timing, because after this book came out, Woody Allen's movie, even though I didn't love it, A Rainy Day in New York, did worldwide VOD, box office killer. The book did gangbusters as well, highly received, highly loved on the fans loved it. The critics were 50-50 on it. I kind of feel like I'm wrapping up my thoughts a little bit, but I don't know what else to say, man. The audiobook is a must. I really think buying the book to support Woody, but hear it coming from his own mouth, because one of the things I don't think you'll come across is the book does show Woody's comedy chops. He throws a lot of one-liners in there. He takes jabs at himself. Even when he's talking about the relationship with Mia Farrow, he makes jokes that are appropriate about himself and how blind he was to the myriad of red flags throughout his relationship. And it's sad, but it's hilarious because he makes the jokes himself. And the book, I think, it's the best thing he's done for his career. And I wasn't even mad. Look, I didn't like A Rainy Day in New York. I thought it was a filler movie. I think the movie was kind of a waste. It was a forgettable movie. But this book coming out at the same year, essentially, the movie came out. It's one of the best things he's ever produced, and it's his real life. I've said this before, James. Woody Allen's life, in summary, is just as interesting as his movies. And I think you disagreed with me when I said that to you at one point. Is that right?
Well, definitely more interesting than Rainy Day in New York. But, I feel like after I read the book, I would say, it's hard because he is so, like, when he talks about his first marriage, he talks about being a pretty shitty husband.
Yeah.
And which I can, I got married very young, and I wasn't a good husband because I was really young and I didn't know what I was doing, and I was selfish and immature, and definitely there was a lot that she did that I could rightfully be angry about, but I look back and I go, and I was 21 and stupid and, you know, didn't know what I was doing either. And then, you know, he gets onto a second marriage, and yeah, she had a lot of problems, and there was a lot of adultery and everything, but he's nothing but sweet to her, and they're still friends. I feel like if you made the movie, you could only, I think, make the movie about the controversy and maybe some flashbacks to. Because I think the movie would be a lot like if you tried to make a linear, straightforward movie, it would be like the book. There'd be you'd skip like out of the 50 movies, you wouldn't even show him making 40 of them.
Sure.
And then, you know, there even the ones that you did show, it would be like I remember that they made a movie about Charlie Chaplin with Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was you know, there'd be like one bit where it'd be like on the set of the Gold Rush, and it wasn't even about the making of the movie. It was just sort of like incidental that they were on the set of the Gold Rush.
Yeah.
And that's what the whole movie side of it would be. Making a movie about his relationship with Mia Farrow and then his relationship with Sun Yi, that would be a fascinating movie. It would be distasteful to a lot of people, but art doesn't always have to be something where you watch it or read it or listen to it and fully agree with it. There's plenty of, at least there used to be, there's movies where the character, you know, if I think about like Taxi Driver, you don't watch Taxi Driver and at least if you're a healthy person, root for Travis Bickle the entire time. But you watch it and you're supposed to sympathize. You're supposed to put yourself in his shoes. He's our main character. I mean, with the exception of maybe that Joker movie from last year, they don't make movies like that. And now it's sort of like, well, he, you know, the Joker movie, he's an incel. We don't want to hear about it. We don't want to hear about, you know, he's a white man and we don't want to hear about his problems, and you know, we should be focusing on this or that. And it's like, well, or we could just watch a good story. And I think that Woody Allen story, you'd get to the part where he's sort of flirting with Sun Yi and things are happening, and you'd be like, this is gross. This is a little bit gross. But you get past that and you go, oh, okay, you know, they really are in love. However it started, they really are in love, and they have a life. And you may like it, you may not, but it's interesting.
Do you know why I think a Woody Allen movie would work? Because the thing that always makes Woody Allen funny to me is that it's like he is the wet blanket, and everything around him is exciting, but he doesn't find anything as exciting as anyone else. Like he from the beginning of the book, he acts like his life. He says this again. One of the things that you gotta love about Woody Allen is he feels like everything that happened, I'm just lucky, and you know, I know I was lucky, I know I'm just fell into this, and I know I've been fortunate, but I didn't really like ask for it. People forced me to be a stand-up. I didn't really want to get into stand-up, but then they forced me. And then I did it, and I was successful, and I'm kind of like, hey, you know, I'm glad, but I didn't really want this. I don't really mind, and I want to be a film director. I want it my way. Then people love me. I don't really care. Everything Woody Allen is, I didn't want to do it. I did it. Everyone loves me. I don't really care. You know, I'm successful. That's okay. But I don't really care. And it's kind of funny. That to me is and even with Sun Yi, I'm with this woman. She's got 20 kids. I'm kind of mad about it. Her daughter, we kind of hit it off. We get together. She wants to kill me. She ruins my life. And I'm kind of like, I just want to keep making my movies. It's like this, like, I don't think Woody Allen's on the spectrum, but there's something about his detachment to reality, and but everyone's like, we love you, Woody. Here's the awards. Here's the accolades. You're the best. You're a great writer. You're a big comedian. You're great. We hate you. We love you. We hate you. We love you. And all through it, Woody Allen's like, just leave me alone. Just let me get on with it. I just want to make movies, live with my girl, do my music, and go home. But everything around him, the world doesn't stop, and that's what makes it funny. That's why I think, in that way, the movie could be interesting. But it really depends who's going to spin this movie. But I have no doubt one day they will make the Woody Allen movie, because it's just, you know, even if you tie the fact that his quote unquote son has been pivotal. Am I saying that? Pivotal in the Me Too movement with the takedown of Harvey Weinstein. That's his son that hates him, that wants to take him down, that wants to put him in prison. You know, it's just it's surreal.
And yeah, there's a movie called Being There with Peter Sellers, where he plays somebody who is probably on the spectrum. It's 1970 something, so they didn't call it that back then. But he's sort of just he's this blank person just sort of walking through life, and everybody thinks he's brilliant, and he doesn't even know what he's saying. He's just sort of, you know, there at one point somebody's interviewing him, and he just says, "I like to watch TV," and they're like, "Are you saying that print is dead and television is like this thing, and that everybody should watch television and not read books?" And he just goes, "I like to watch TV." He doesn't know what's happening around him.
Yeah.
There's a bit in the book about Woody waking up and looking at the newspaper and going, "Oh, Annie Hall won all these Oscars. That's nice." And then getting on with his day.
Wow. Talk about dismissive. I was like, wow. How many? I think I won 3 Oscars. Was it 3 Oscars?
And one of them for him, for director. And, you know, I think he said, "I was happy for Diane."
It's like someone just gave him a birthday card and he was like, "That's nice. Anyway, what's for breakfast?" I mean, if you watch a movie where it's continuously doing that, where people are like, "We love you, I want to thank Woody Allen. Can you change the channel? I want to watch the game."
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I really got out of this book that made me feel better, because this is a subject that really outrages me because of the indifference to facts. One of the things that made me feel better about it was that Woody doesn't care. He doesn't care as much as I care, as much as you care about all of this. He's sort of, he looks at it and he's like, "Yeah, I'm just still living my life." And, you know, he said at one point he would love to reconnect with Dylan.
Yeah.
But his opinion of Ronan is pretty clear, that he looks at Ronan and like, "You know what? It's okay if you're Frank's son. I'd be okay with that." Because I think he doesn't say it, but I think it's pretty clear he's like, yeah, he's a prick.
I just think he wants it to be his son at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, so let me talk about 2 things. And again, how can you really spoil a memoir? But I want to talk about 2 things that I learned about Woody. There's a lot of things. I can't remember them all. I didn't really want to write a list of all the highlights of the book, because you guys should read it. Definitely a recommendation. But what I want to say is there's 2 people he spoke about. This is the stuff you can only learn from the person's mind themselves. I found it pretty sweet and slightly sad to hear about the relationship he had with Emma Stone.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, you would never know, because she hasn't said anything. I mean, she hasn't gone against him. I know she's another one that was kind of like, "I don't regret working with Woody." Well, she's kind of been silent. Very silent. So she hasn't said for or against. But when he went into the book about how they used to text and how they had a nice back and forth, and then that relationship just kind of fizzled out because he said something wrong, I was kind of like, oh, that's kind of sad. I never knew that they were that close. But, this is one of those things you would only find out in a memoir, which was pretty interesting.
And it was never like, it wasn't creepy with Emma Stone, which made me think that there was a part of maybe their relationship where he felt a bit paternal, where he felt like she is probably about the same age as Dylan. And, there's maybe a part of him that felt like, oh, this is a little bit like a relationship that I wish I had with my daughter.
Yeah. I can see that. Yeah.
I don't know if it's that she distanced herself because of the controversy, or if it was just, a movie set, you work with these people, you're really close to them for however long you're doing it, and then you never see them again. And you don't call, and on very few occasions do you actually make a friend who you then associate with outside of that. And she may have just sort of drifted away. But yeah, I did think that was a little sad, especially hearing him talk about it. You could hear in his voice
That he really liked her.
to.
He really, yeah. And I was like, wow, I never knew they were that close. It sounded like a really fun, and I liked her I know they only did 2 movies together, Magic in the Moonlight and Irrational Man. I prefer Magic in the Moonlight. Irrational Man, it was a bit tapered off a bit. But so the second thing he mentioned, which really surprised me, and I should have known, but I didn't do my research. I had no idea. Big spoiler for the book, by the way. You might... Spoiler. Just saying it now. I had no idea Louis C.K. wrote that movie for Woody Allen before he made it himself. I mean, he pitched that to Woody Allen, which, just like Woody Allen, I thought that was fucking ridiculous. But I understand what he was trying to do and why he thought it would work. But I 100% agree with Woody. That would not have worked. And unfortunately for him, the timing couldn't have been worse because it backfired on him so bad anyway. So what did you think when you heard this? Did you know that? Because I don't think Louis C.K. said that he pitched that film to Woody before he made it himself.
I mean, I knew about that. I haven't seen the movie. You actually can find the movie online.
Yeah.
But
it's called Come to Daddy, I think.
I Love You, Daddy, or
I Love You,
something
Daddy.
like that.
Sorry, it's so on the nose.
Yeah.
But it was for Woody. It was for Woody.
Yeah, I think it's John Malkovich that got the part.
Yeah.
But I heard about that part of it, and I actually thought, because they worked together on Blue Jasmine.
Blue Jasmine, yeah.
And I thought, well, that's kind of a shitty thing to do. I thought it was almost like him stabbing Woody in the back, but it turns out he's like, hey, why don't you do this? And I mean, I could understand Woody going, and I think Woody even mentioned that they talked about writing a movie together as partners.
Yeah.
And which surprised, because he hasn't done that in decades, but I think Bullets Over Broadway was the last time he did that. And then everything happened with Louis the way that it happened with Louis. And that was surprising. I think Louis C.K. is, for the most part, a pretty smart guy. And I think the fact that he thought Woody would do that was it was incredible that he actually was like, this is a good idea. Come do this. With Chloe Grace Moretz.
Yeah, maybe because you see how we just spoke about how Woody's detached, he doesn't care. Maybe he thought, oh, this guy really doesn't care, so we can really push it and do. I mean, if Woody did the movie at the time that he wanted to, dealing with the strut, I think it would have been the absolute, talk about a mine that Woody Allen, a missile that Woody Allen dodged. Because I just don't think, and I want to say Louis C.K.'s heart was in the right place, but I just think it was a bad idea. I haven't watched the movie, and I think we're going to talk about the movie in future, but I honestly was very shocked. But I was glad that he came to Woody with the idea first, and that it didn't turn out that it was, because I remember him saying, when the movie came out, when he was doing promotion for the movie, because the movie got shelved, because of his controversy, I remember him saying it was inspired by Woody Allen, but he never said publicly he pitched it to him first. But it probably didn't do that for obvious reasons now.
Well, I just think, Woody got enough flack for, at the time, nobody saw Rainy Day in New York, and they were all, that I forget the name of the act. Who's the main actress in it?
Oh, the
not
blonde,
Selena Gomez.
The blonde. I can't remember her name. She was the one in the Neon Demon. I'll look it up. I'll look it up while we're talking. Oh, Elle Fanning. Elle Fanning.
That's right. That she has this relationship with, I forget if it was like Jude Law or Liev Schreiber, and it's like this older man taking advantage of a younger woman and blah blah blah. And then when you watch the movie, that's not what happens.
Not at all.
She actually, the only one that she kind of almost hooks up with is Diego Luna, who's about her age.
Yeah.
And or maybe like 5-10 years older, but so people were already jumping down his throat over what they perceived Rainy Day in New York was going to be.
That's what I thought the script was. So I was fed misinformation because I was told that the movie was going to be about an older man and a younger student, and it wasn't even about that. So someone just made up controversy to add on to Woody's, controversy.
Of all the problems with Rainy Day in New York, that is not one of them.
No.
And he was already dealing with that. To have added the Louis C.K. thing onto it, it would have been. I think the term that keeps popping up about the book, about everything, is tone deaf.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it's that Woody is tone deaf. I think that it's Woody is a very plain spoken person.
Yes.
He's not going to sugarcoat things. He's not going to make. I mean, really, even his ex-wife, who is still alive and who's still
from Take the Money and Run. That
yeah.
Or the one before that. The second
the second wife.
Yeah.
And they're friends, and she got interviewed for the documentary and everything, and came out and defended him against Dylan and everything. But even he was like, yeah, she was nuts. She was crazy. She was, he doesn't use terms like she was mentally ill and she had this problem. It's like she was nuts. And to some people that comes off as callous. To me, it came off as a kind of it. Here's the thing. Woody talked to us the way he would talk to a friend in that book. A friend wouldn't sit there. If you and I are talking privately and one of us has just gotten out of a bad relationship, we're not going to say, oh, she was mentally ill and I understand that. And I'm very compassionate towards the mentally ill community and blah, blah, blah. We're going to say she was nuts. I am so glad I'm out of that. She was cheating on me left and right. She was, I think Woody makes jokes about like, she was cheating on him with like everybody in Manhattan at some point. And it's not sensitive, but I felt like there were parts with listening to the audiobook where I actually felt like he was talking to me.
Yeah.
That he was, he wasn't, this is not a PR thing. This is not him. He didn't run this past his lawyer and agents and say, should I take that part out? Okay, I'll take it. And should I spin this way? He just told it the way that he sees it.
I think he was prepared when it came to the facts about the case. I think he had bullet points he wanted to hit, which is good. He was very succinct in all those points. But to be honest with you, Robert Widey had written him. There's a lot of essays that he had prepared of people defending him, which was easy enough to do. Even though he lived there, obviously he knew what was true as well. That part was prepared and calculated, but it needed to be because he wanted to set the record straight, and he did. And there's one more thing I want to bring up, and I want to ask you, because I've brought up a lot of things that I liked in the book. There's one story that did break my heart, and it's a controversy, actually, a smaller one. It was about people who invested in, I don't know if it was his film or his production company, that were ripping him off, two of his friends, and he begged them to sort it out of court. He begged to settle. They wouldn't listen. They went to court, and it was so sad to hear how that friendship just disintegrated, because I think her friend's husband was just greedy, and they tried to talk it out. He tried to tell them, please don't let this go to court, please, and they just kept on deflecting or making some excuse or something, and then the relationship ended, and he was just so bewildered. And he speaks about having friends in business. Again, there's a lot of lessons he talks about you can learn about having friends in business, and this particular couple he goes on about, very sad to read, very sad to hear, because he really sounded like he loved them, and over money, or they were greedy or whatever, and they were very embarrassed because apparently the trades picked it up and they exposed them. They went to court, they lost as well, and then they lost a friendship over it, and he was really broken up about it. You know what bit I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, and I don't, if I'm remembering, I don't even think he got the money.
I thought he won that case. I thought he won that one.
He won it, but there's lots of times where you win a case and nobody pays, and you have to make a decision like, do I press this or do I let it go? And and again, that goes back to what you were saying about people who say he doesn't care about anything, whether it's that or the Emma Stone thing, or he does seem like he is very broken up about Dylan and not getting to and not only not getting to see Dylan, but feeling that Dylan was victimized. And
yeah, that's a good point.
And then talking about Sun Yi, these are things that he, you know, maybe he's not sitting there saying, you know, giving 15 pages over to you know, a Midsummer's Night sex comedy, but he's talking about things that maybe should matter more. And you know, he spends a lot of time talking about his parents, about his mother and father, and about the one person I felt like got a little bit left out was his sister, because there's more in the documentary about his sister than there is in the book.
Yeah,
but you could see it and hear it in his voice when he's talking about certain people. He does care. It's just and then you could hear it in his voice when he doesn't. Like I said, I think that he is so far removed from caring at all what Ronan thinks that you know, there's almost, that's a part where you could hear a little bit of bitterness in his voice, where it's almost every time he says Ronan's name, there's a little bit of a kind of growl in his voice where he's just, I have to talk about this asshole.
Yeah.
And
I wouldn't call it, I would say he feels deflated. I would say there's a kind of resignation that, oh, fuck, you know, maybe he's disappointed.
Oh, I think he is. You know, the thing, and I just want to get this in real quick because this bugs me so much.
Sure.
I am so tired of the taking Ronan Farrow and putting him on a fucking plaque and talking about how amazing he is and how the, you know, that documentary has a great bit where it talks about Dylan and talks about Ronan, and it talks about how the documentary on YouTube that everybody should watch. It talks about, like, with Ronan, how he says, well, these stories aren't about me. And then every interview he gives is about, it's about me. It's about how I got this done and how I'm a hero and how I accomplished this. And it's almost like he's saying, I'm more important than the women that this story is about. I'm the star of this story. And with Dylan, there's a lot of, and I felt worse for Dylan years ago than I do now, because there is a lot of, like, how she's a victim, how she's been treated, all this, and she's not really much of an advocate for other people.
Yeah. You need to, guys, you really need to watch this Rick Wardy video talking about Dylan Farrow and Ronan Farrow and their, I don't know, with Dylan Farrow, I want to say unconscious agenda. With Ronan Farrow, I want to say that you know, actually, let's move forward to today. So more recently, there was a kind of a takedown on Ronan Farrow by the New York Times. It's called "Is Ronan Farrow Too Good to Be True?" Basically, there was a big kind of write-up on him showing that his reporting over the last years has been very fast and loose. This is a big article that a lot of people have been reading, and actually digging into the facts of a lot of Ronan Farrow's reporting. He has been very sloppy. Obviously, Woody Allen came out to criticize it again, saying that he always felt that way. And, you know, Ronan Farrow, he had a show cancelled before.
Yeah.
He's never been that successful. It's just that the Harvey Weinstein thing was, you know, something he picked that did.
Which,
that was.
By the way, I just want to say real quick, I woke up the day that the Harvey Weinstein thing broke, and I looked at my phone. Harvey Weinstein, sexually assaulted and all these women and everything. And I looked at it and I went, yeah, everybody knows that. What is the controversy? What is the thing that was exposed? That's not a secret. It never was a secret. Ronan just wrote a story about it and got a couple of people to talk.
It reminds me of Apple products when they say, you know, Apple wasn't the first to make the iPhone, but they were the first one to package it in a way where the masses ate it up. And I hate to minimize what Ronan Farrow did for the Me Too movement, because I'm not trying to take it away, but, you know, he seems all that glitters isn't gold. And this guy, you guys need to watch Rick Worley's video describing the problem with Ronan Farrow, and and even Dylan Farrow to a certain extent, because he's no angel, and I think he's kind of got his blinders on. You could do the right things for the wrong reasons, or you could just be selfish. I think he's kind of both. I think he's selfish. I think he does the right thing for the wrong reasons too. And maybe when I see that smug face, I just think maybe maybe he just wants to be famous. Maybe he just wants to be accomplished. He just wants to be recognized.
Well, maybe mommy had his legs broken when he was younger so that he could be taller, because that's what she thought he would need in order to be successful. That's the other things that came out in the book. And
guys listening, that's not James making a joke. That's apparently what happened. I just want to say that you weren't making some kind of morbid joke about him having his legs broken. That apparently that's what Mia Farrow did to her own son to give him a leg up.
And I said this in my review of Rainy Day in New York, which is sort of half a review of the movie and more like it talking about when the book was canceled and everything, that Ronan comes out, whenever he talks about Woody, he talks about Woody with certainty. I remember the Academy Awards or the Golden Globe, something gave Woody some kind of Lifetime Achievement Award, and Ronan tweeted out, did they talk about him being a child molester? The word is alleged child molester. And Ronan Farrow, as a reporter, ought to know that. When there is a mass shooting, and we know who did it, we have video of who did it. It's not like we don't know who did it. The news always says the alleged shooter. Ronan doesn't do that. Ronan talks with certainty about people. He says, this person did this. And that is not what a reporter does.
Yeah.
And even if it's, and the thing too is the other, I don't want to get into this too much, but I wrote a book and I had to do a lot of research for it, and it dealt with
we're
media.
gonna talk about your book at the end. Don't worry.
I just don't know. I don't want to do it in the middle of the thing, but
cool. Yeah.
I had to do a lot of research for it, and one of the things that I needed to do was talk to somebody in the media. And so I talked to a lady who is the editor of a newspaper, and she talked to me about conflict of interest, about how writing a story or about somebody is not something that is looked kindly upon in the media because you can't be objective. And Ronan can't be objective about Woody, not only because, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He believes his sister, but he's also built his career on this.
Yeah.
And if he were to say, oh, my father, I read my father's book and I'm having to rethink these things. And maybe Moses had a point about this. Now that I think about it, Moses wasn't treated very well. If he said that, his career falls apart. So he just pushes forward with this agenda of and like I said, but we were talking about the media not being objective. Ronan Farrow is one of the worst offenders in that way, because he just goes on there and he talks about, when my father molested my sister. And it's like, again, Woody was exonerated twice over. You're not mentioning that. You're not mentioning that this did go to court, that Woody was never charged. He was never arrested, that, all this stuff. And Ronan doesn't talk about it. And I think for a long time, I didn't know about this New York Times piece. I'm going to have to look this up, but a lot of people were scared to contradict Ronan Farrow, because they thought to contradict Ronan Farrow was to say you're not a supporter of the Me Too movement. And I don't think you or I are not supporters of that. That there are women who have put up with crap for far too long that should be listened to, and their stories are important and valid. But you also have to look at things objectively, and Ronan doesn't do that. Ronan just looks at, what is best for him. And that's in line with Mia and how he was raised.
You know, just I was watching Another Woman, my favorite Woody Allen movie, the other day, and Mia Farrow's pregnant in that movie with him. She's carrying Ronan in her belly, and I'm like, this is the only movie where you see these two on camera at the same time. Her carrying the taker, the man who would take down Harvey Weinstein, the Me Too movement, and Maya, his father's career on that crusade forever. It's just ominous that my favorite movie is the only movie where Woody's ex-girlfriend is giving birth to someone who's gonna just cause a lot of chaos. But Woody did it to himself as well. Listen, let's wrap up the book talk a little bit.
Yeah.
I just want to ask you. So, I want to say this about the book. The book was more than I expected. I didn't expect the book to even be this good. I thought, honestly, Woody, just like his movies, is kind of showing his age and maybe doesn't care as much, and maybe it will just be, I don't know. I expected the book to be very, very mediocre and maybe just more like an old man just watching his life go by and looking at things. There's an energy for someone who's very cold in his book. There's energy to the book. When he starts reading his audiobook, he sounds his age. When I first started listening, I thought, this guy sounds like he's on his deathbed, man. He sounds old. But as the book goes on, I just got more into it. I felt a different kind of energy. He had sharp, witty jokes mixed with brutal honesty and a lot of revelations, a lot of interesting things. Again, I'll say it for the record, I personally thought the fact he gave all of his movies one-liners was funny. It was consistent to how he always is, but he spoke about every single movie, even the ones that he didn't produce, like the Sunshine Boys or the movie he did with Francis Coppola and I can't remember the other director. He spoke about everything, even for 5 seconds. I appreciated it. The movie is very comprehensive. If Woody wants to milk his career even more, he could give people what they want and make another book just called Woody Allen, My Movies, here you go, and just expunge, give the fans what they want even more. Will I think he'll do it? Hell no, he won't, because he's probably done. If he wanted to, or maybe Sun Ying can and say, hey, Woody actually wrote notes about these books and I'm doing it for him. Who knows? But I'm happy he put the memoir out. I'm happy he said his piece. It was great. The fact that I got a mediocre movie from Woody, but a great memoir is fantastic anyway. So I feel like the year is solid. And more than anything, I think the book has done great for his reputation, great for his career, has really shown, again, why he's such a great comedy writer and an honest person. And I think, honestly, if he died today, this really did put a pin on his entire life. I think I'm so glad this book came out before he passed away. I was not happy when I heard he couldn't get anyone to publish the book, because it was very frustrating, because he's such an accomplished director. But the fact he got it out, the people, not the critics, the people love it, and it's well written. I mean, for me as a fan, it's a win-win-win-win-win. And to me, it's kind of a cap on his whole career if he was to die. But he's not dead. I don't wish it on him. But I think, honestly, he can die a happy man, in my opinion.
And, you know, the thing to me that this book did was, you know, all of the stories that you read, even the critical ones, there's something that's in these stories now that wasn't in them before, that in the articles about Woody. Before, they would say Woody Allen was accused of molesting his daughter. He denies it. Now, all of the stories say Woody Allen was accused of molesting his daughter, and 2 different court-appointed officials looked into it and said that that didn't happen and that she was likely coached by her mother. And that distinction now is there, where it wasn't before. And it's almost like the book forced them to do it. That the book forced them to...
I agree.
They no longer could just gloss over that part of it. And Woody is somebody who I you know, the first time I watched a Woody Allen movie, I was a teenager and didn't know I was necessarily watching a Woody Allen movie. And when I started really getting into them and watching them, I realized this is a guy who has a lot to say. And you know, he gets accused of being pretentious, and maybe sometimes he is. I think there's definitely a lot of pretension in Rainy Day in New York.
Sure.
But when you look at something like Hannah and Her Sisters, and you look at this guy who is thinking about his death, and he's thinking about, you know, what is my legacy, and is there an afterlife, and maybe I should be looking for this, and there's something deeper there, and he's really trying to explore it, and he's really trying to figure it out. And watching somebody do that for 50 years right in front of us is unprecedented.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he doesn't always succeed, but he's always trying. And I think that's something that the book really illustrates, is that because he doesn't even really talk about those deeper issues much in the book, which I didn't think he would. I didn't think he would sit there going, you know, what happens after we die? And, you know, he wouldn't do that. But you see it in the movies. And that is sometimes the best kind of an artist, where they don't have to explain their art to you. They just want you to go see it and make up your own mind and think what you're going to think. And that is what he does. And I thought the book was one of the most enjoyable. I mean, I was going to say read. I didn't read it. I listened to it. But
yeah,
it was one of the most enjoyable books that I've
might as well say
read in a long time.
Yeah, might as well read, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I almost to the point, if he did like the book that you're talking about, how, you know, here's a chapter about Annie Hall and here's a chapter about Stardust Memories, it would not be nearly as interesting.
Maybe not. I know fans would love it. Filmmakers will love it. I know this.
Oh yeah, I'd buy it.
Yeah.
I'd buy it and I'd read it, but I don't think it would be as, listening to him talk about, you know, I there's something to him when he's a kid and he wants to learn to play the clarinet, and he seeks out a well-known jazz musician. He doesn't just sort of go to a teacher like that his mother would hire or whatever. He goes and he finds this guy, and he has the balls to like ask him, teach me. He's living his life. That's something that it made me feel so good reading it, is that for all the people who say, ha ha ha, we took his career away and Rainy Day in New York didn't get a theatrical release here and whatever, Woody doesn't care. He's lived his life. He's enjoyed his life. And he got his little digs in there, like when he said about Timothy Chalamet. Yeah, he told my sister he had to say that.
Yeah.
Because he was up for an Oscar.
Not
and
surprised.
It was like,
not surprised.
It wasn't said in malice. It wasn't like this little shit lied. It was, you know, this is what he told my sister. And you completely believe it because there's no passion to it. He's just saying what happened.
Yeah.
And they can't take any of his accomplishments away. And that made me feel really good and really much more positive about the whole thing than I did before I read it.
Yeah, I mean, let's. I'll let you have the last word on that. And I just want to talk about two more things. So, two celebrities that read the book and say they loved it. Actually, three. Because I don't have a physical copy of the book, I can only say if you own the physical book, apparently there's a picture of Woody at the back taken by Diane Keaton, which Woody loves. Yeah. So Woody was happy to let her do that, which again I think is a nice homage, just to show how strong that relationship is throughout their whole entire career. I just love that. I would love for them to see one last movie together. That's probably not going to happen. So the other person,
I don't know. Like they're so good together. Why doesn't he do it?
He might. If they do one more movie together, that should be Woody's final movie. I will say that. So yeah, Diane Keaton, apparently she loved the book, but obviously she probably got her first advance copy anyway. She probably read it before anyone else. Larry David read the book, loved it, promoted it, and Alec Baldwin not only loved the book, but Alec Baldwin has a podcast which he interviewed Woody Allen on just very recently. I'll link it in the podcast description alone. Had a really good interview with Woody Allen about the book, even about the controversy, and you know, I'm getting tired of saying and the controversy. That shit just needs to end. The false allegations. That's what I need to start calling it from now on.
That's the better way of putting it.
Because that's what they are. They're false allegations that were proven legally false. But yeah, Alec Baldwin podcast with Woody Allen, really great. Check that out. Great book. And I just want to say, so by the end of the book, Woody's talking about his future, which we can talk about now, just to wrap up the podcast. He's obviously making his most recent film with a weird name. I think it's Rankin's Festival. I think that's
something like that. Yeah.
Something's Festival with, I think, Wallace Shawn and that actor from Inglourious Bastards. I can't remember his name right now.
Christoph Waltz.
Christoph Waltz. They're the two big actors in there. Looking forward to that. Woody said he still wants to keep making films. Happy to hear that. The future for Woody is bright. I think if I had to guess what I think is going to happen, I think he's going to slow down his movie production. Right now, at the time of this recording, it's obviously at the time of this recording, coronavirus pandemic is still hit, so all movie production is stalled anyway. I think they did wrap the filming of the festival of Woody's next movie anyway, but I wouldn't be surprised if he slowed down his production to every 2 years. So, but I foresee Woody making a couple more movies. Apparently, he said on the Alec Baldwin podcast, this movie he's doing now is his 50th, but he could just be confused. So I don't think Woody's personally keeping count. But either way, we're right at the 50th mark. I'm happy, man. I'm happy as a fan. But this book has really given me the icing on the cake. And yeah, I'm happy with the book, and so are the fans, as far as I can see.
And because I think that the Rifkin's Festival is part of, I think, a 3-picture deal that he made with a Spanish film company.
Oh,
he's
really?
going over to Spain, and that's why it's set in Spain, and he's going over there. And I recently, for the first time, watched Vicky Cristina Barcelona.
Ooh,
it was one of those movies where everybody said, "Oh, it's so great, it's so great," and I thought it's getting overhyped, and I watched it.
Yeah.
And I thought that, I was thinking as I'm watching it, and it's gorgeous.
Yeah,
the
beautiful.
whole movie is just gorgeous. And I'm
those
thinking
ladies
about
too.
oh yeah. But I'm thinking if the rest of his life is spent making movies in Spain, wow, they really got him. They really messed up his life. He's got to, get to go over and make movies in like a beautiful country, and it's like basically he gets to take a vacation every year, and it gets paid for, and he gets paid doing it. So I think that, because I know he doesn't count What's Up, Tiger Lily.
Yeah, he doesn't know.
So I think that this is what would be his 50th movie. I really hope that whatever his last movie is, I just don't want him to go out on a whimper. Like if Rainy Day in New York was his last movie, it'd be such a shame.
Yeah.
Because that movie, I think I chuckled once. I really disliked the characters
Definitely
in it.
Yeah.
And
they're all hateable. I don't think they're meant to even be likable.
I don't think they're meant to be likable, but I dislike them, I think, even in the way that they're meant to be.
Disliked.
I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen Timothée Chalamet in a movie, but it made me not want to see him in any more movies.
I don't
because
blame
it
you.
was like he was. This is where like Woody misfired in that he cast all these 20-year-olds, and all the dialogue is about jazz musicians and old movies from 1952, and these kids wouldn't talk like that. And I really hope that what he does, which is funny, again, watching Vicky Cristina Barcelona, he can write young people.
Yeah.
But I hope that again, bring over Diane Keaton, Alec Baldwin. Scarlett Johansson said she'd work with him again. I would love to see him sit down and write a movie specifically for these people, and to just say, you know what, these are the people that stuck by me, and I loved working with them. Maybe even try and see if Emma Stone will come and do it, and make just. I hope he does do the every other year, because I really want him to just put more time and effort and start weeding out the Rainy Day in New Yorks.
Yeah, I think we all want that. I could not agree more. So let's leave it there for the discussion about the book. Woody, I mean, We'll be back, guys. We got a few little announcements to make. Thanks for listening, guys. Share your thoughts on Apple Post Nothing with us in the comments down below. Before we wrap this up and go, we've got 2 announcements to make. Now, one, I want to give you some spotlight, James, Mr. Walsh. You wrote a book, which is on Amazon. I want you to talk about it a little bit. We always want to promote other media as well. So I read a few chapters. I really like what I read. Just because of life, I've apologized to you profusely for not finishing it. But in case someone else wants to check it out, why don't you just, if you don't mind, share us your thoughts on the book, what it's about, and I'll leave a link down below if they want to purchase it, because it's on Amazon. Is that right?
Well, the book that I sent you is not on Amazon because it's just my agent is just starting to like pitch it. So
okay, you're getting, okay, I got you. That's okay.
That's a little bit ways off, but I do have actually there's a 6-volume anthology of short stories that I wrote called Manic Expression, a collection that's over on Amazon. And of course, there's Manic Expression, the website where you can post your videos, your blogs, your podcasts, and meet some great people doing it. And we've done a lot of projects, wonderful projects like our documentary Creative Chaos that you can find on my YouTube channel, James Walsh, along with movie reviews that I do.
I'll leave that link down below. So we're going to wrap this podcast up with an announcement. I want to say this. I was very surprised to find out the Woody Allen Retrospective podcast is actually in the top 100 of film review podcasts. Now, I know recently Apple just used to throw all podcasts in all pots. It just used to be one big pot for, the millions of podcasts out there. But now there's subcategories. In terms of film critique, we're in the top 100. I think we're like 70, 77. Now, to some people, that might be nothing, but to us, it's a big deal because we've got a couple of 100 listens every month. I want to expand on the podcast because, again, this is about Woody Allen, but I said this in a previous video. I want to make a little bit more content that's relevant to this project. And here's the pitch. I said this to you a couple of months ago, but just for a recap. Woody Allen is my favorite director, and I feel like he's influenced my taste in film. Every time I've looked for a film to watch, Woody Allen, I felt like his taste or his themes have guided me into liking a certain type of film. So my film collection has a lot of movies like what Woody Allen has done. Now, there's a lot of people that say this Woody's like Woody Allen, that Woody's like Woody Allen, or this is inspired by. I want to make a series on this podcast feed, which we're going to discuss films that are like Woody Allen, films that inspired Woody Allen. I want to talk and review those films with my man here, James Walsh. I asked him to join me on this journey, and later this year, we want to start doing a monthly review for these films right here on the Woody Allen Retrospective podcast, part of Planet Tyro. James accepted the invitation, and I'm very much looking forward to that. So yeah, we're going to be taking, we got a long list. I've already got 60 movies that we're already going to talk about. Some old, some new, some forgotten, some blue. But trust me, it's going to be, a lot of them are really interesting movies and some classics. Ingmar Bergman's going to be down the line as well. So yeah, I want to say thank you, James, for joining me on this journey. It's going to be fun, and because it's going to be once a month, it's not going to be, all the time, but it's going to keep the feed alive, and I think it's going to be really interesting to have these discussions with you.
I'm looking forward to it, and thank you very much for thinking to ask me.
Yeah. So, guys, if you're looking forward to that, stay tuned, subscribe, and, guys, always comment on the video, letting us know you love the content. Appreciate that. Thank you so much for listening. Apologies for the last review on Rainy Day in New York. Blame Simon, because I wanted to do a serious review, but they wanted to do a drunken review, just shooting the shit. That's what that was. But I didn't like the movie that much anyway, so, and I don't think it's a movie to really gag about. There's 50 Woody Allen movies. There's better ones you can go back and watch. So that one's just pretty meh. So apologies for that. But yeah, that's enough for that, guys. Thanks for listening for over an hour and a half. James, I'm going to wrap this podcast up. Thank you for joining me again.
Thanks for having me.
Guys, we'll see you on the next recording. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to check out all the links in the description for a lot of things we said. Cause yeah, man, it's a good community we got out here. Oh, and shout out to 2 pages, the Woody Allen pages, Woody Allen resource, lots of great books there, and the Woody Allen subreddit. Always carry on the conversation there. Thanks for letting us host the podcast and links here and the links there. Appreciate that, guys. We'll leave it at that for now. Take care. Peace out.